Good morning. It is 6 a.m. and it is a perfect gloomy morning to make a video about parenting a goth child. Now, I don't have a lot of time to talk about it because, YouTube will only allow me, a certain amount of time to talk about it, but I will try to cover as much territory as I can. This video in particular is for the parents. So, let me begin by saying that Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, once said that if you know your enemy and you know yourself, then you will win any battle. Now, I'm not saying your child is your enemy, but hey, let's not lie to ourselves. This is kind of a battle. Raising a child, an individual who is as unique as a fingerprint, who wants to go their own way, and yet they don't want to go your way. Well, that's perfectly understandable. It's understandable that you want them to be safe. It's understandable that you want them to be happy. But just remember that happiness is not always the parameter for what makes a person fulfilled. What makes them fulfilled is what makes them fulfilled, even if it is looking to the darker side of life. Now, hear me out. I know that the dark aesthetic is not for a lot of you, that not a lot of you accept that, not a lot of you like that, and that it scares you that your child has to think these spooky, dark thoughts. But I assure you, like any human being, we are not always depressed. Sometimes, most of the time, we're fairly happy. We just have a fascination with the realm beyond our own little microcosm here on Earth. And if you look towards a lot of dark figures in history, such as Edgar Allan Poe and Friedrich Nietzsche, you'll see that those guys were fairly dark in their outlook in life too. And it wasn't because they were trying to piss off the world or because they were evil even. Remember, darkness does not always equal evil. It was because they understood life is not always happy, that life is not always fair, and that they would rather know the truth than delude themselves into living a happy little lie. Now, maybe your child is not exactly that profound quite yet. Maybe right now all they're doing is wearing upside down pentagrams, smudging on the black eyeliner, and wearing nothing but black day and night, and trying to scare the living daylights out of people. Well, that, my friends, is what we call the baby bat years. And that is when a child, I should say, a teenager, 13 to 15 years old, decides that they want to get into the goth subculture. Now, they may not, be aware that their behavior is embarrassing at first, but eventually they catch on to the fact that their clothes look ridiculous, the way they put them together, and that pissing off people isn't going to get you a lot of friends, it isn't going to get you fulfillment. But that is what baby bats do. They eventually grow out of it, I assure you of that. Every baby bat grows out of it and becomes a much more mature goth person, or possibly even grows out of the fashion itself. And this is something you need to keep in mind, is that if they don't grow out of this fashion, then and they're adults, there's really nothing you can do or say after that point. If you are so adamant upon insisting that your child possibly, grows, out of that phase, or doesn't get into that phase at all, well, let me say, it's not realistic to say that you should stop them from getting into that phase to begin with. No, well, you can try that, but let me tell you this. Everyone knows that the harder you push with a teenager, the harder they push back. And it'll eventually get to the point where they will start putting extra black clothes in their backpacks and taking it to school. Taking petroleum jelly or makeup remover to school so they can take their eyeliner off before you pick them up from school. It'll get to the point where they try to sneak out at night or whatever. Even if you can stop them from doing all those things, they will dissent in their own way. They will try to find household needles to pierce themselves. They will try to, draw bats everywhere. Whatever they will do. I know this because I was a baby bat once, and my parents tried to suppress me from every angle. And, I can't say that my parents don't have a legit reason to hate Goths. I mean, there should never be a legit reason to hate anyone. But most parents don't like Goths because they're spooky and dark, and just because of the way they look. They really don't know anything about them, but they just don't like the way they look. My parents, on the other hand, had an experience with a Goth that really made them not come around to the subculture at all. Now, I will tell you about this experience. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my little brother was 5 or 6, and my parents decided to take us on an outing to the local mall. Now, we were sitting down, just eating our food. My little brother was rambunctious and zigzagging all through the tables, and right next to us there was this group of Goth kids. About 4 of them. 3 of them decided to get up and walk around the mall. One decided to stay behind and just kind of sit like this, just staring into nothing and moping around. Now, I guess, what happened was that my little brother, kind of stood in front of this guy and laughed. He wasn't laughing at him. He wasn't laughing at the way he looked, but he was just laughing because he was a happy little 5-year-old boy. And this kid probably took it the wrong way. And he took his big honkin' steel-toe boot and kicked my little brother right in the stomach. Needless to say, parents weren't happy, mall security was called, and ever since that day, they have damned every single Goth person that ever came their way. But you cannot generalize in that way. Just like I can't generalize with jocks and cheerleaders and say that, that they're all sluts or they're all cavemen in their behavior. That doesn't mean that necessarily applies to the whole entire group, because there are some nice jocks, there are nice cheerleaders, there are nice people, mostly normal people, in every group that you find. And likewise, there are mostly nice people with us. With Goths, we are intelligent, we are intuitive, we are creative, we are very aware of ourselves and of the world, and we're very reserved. Some people don't find that very sociable behavior, but it's not because we don't like people. It's because we need time to contemplate, we need time to read and to reflect on poetry or art or music. We're very artistic in that way. And aren't most artists misunderstood? So I'm going to try to put a link below where you can try to look up the different types of Goth subcultures. Well, the subcultures within the subculture. Because there are many different types of Goth. And not all of them, some of them are not even remotely alike. Some of them look like they don't even belong there. But nonetheless, we accept each other as we are, no matter what we are into, no matter what we like. So, if you take a look at the different types of Goth, the artist, Megan Belank, I think it is, she makes all these little squares with visual illustrations of different types of Goth fashion and a brief description. And I found it very helpful. and getting to know the fashion and the subculture a little more. And if you get to know it, I am sure that you will find that it is not all that disturbing. And in fact, there may be some lighter, nicer, not nicer, but, lighter and more colorful varieties of goth that maybe you can try to, gently nudge your children into getting into that instead if the darkness is too much for you to handle. If not, I just suggest that you let them ride it out. Just let them go through that phase, because eventually that's what my parents had